more focused on the 1 to 30 experience? Or how relevant are gear brands going to be for me once I have started collecting gear sets?
So I think they're going to be relevant. If you're collecting a gear set, then of course you won't be able to equip any brand pieces, because if you want 5 or 6 pieces of the gear set, then well you only have so many knees to pad.
Speak for yourself.
However, I think what we're going for is we want it to be viable to have an orange build in endgame, so a brand-based build rather than a gear set, because the gear sets aren't necessarily better, but they're doing something else. They're different.
Okay.
So once you hit endgame, you're going to have these 2 avenues that you can play around with the normal gear that's in orange or in high end, or with the gear sets that are more specialized and caters more to a specific playstyle.
Okay. All right. Are there any other considerations we need to take into account when we're talking about brand sets? Because obviously, well, we'll talk more about it in depth soon, because I want to talk about crafting and recal.
Yeah.
Are there things that I can recal from brand sets and put them elsewhere?
So the brand set bonuses, those are specific to the brand. Okay. So you can't take a plus crit chance from one brand and put on something else if it's one of the unlocked stats. However, when you're recalibrating, then you can move other things around freely. So if you have a set of gloves from Douglas and Harding and it has a bonus that rolled on it, you can move that bonus over, but you can't touch the brand. Exactly, not the brand specific stuff.
All right, well, we'll come back to recal from Division 1 to Division 2. Main stats are gone, strength. I mean, no toughness and skill power and
and batteries and all the things.
All that.
Yeah.
But we now have, those things are handled in different ways. When you were talking about all of the stats on gear, do you call any of them attributes? Is there a split there?
Yeah. So if I would say attributes, I would say like anything that's rolled on the gear. So that would be not the brand bonus. Not the main armor stat, but the rest of them, those are attributes, and then there's stats and there's talents.
Okay, yeah, because that's a little bit muddy. I think it's a little bit muddy for me. There are smarter people out there.
Yeah, and I think technically attributes are actually the rolled stats on items. Okay. So that's mostly like a shorthand. To encompass all of it. But I think if you say attributes, assume that someone is talking about the stats.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, maybe.
A little bit. So, some things that what would you define as attributes and not attributes? Are there any examples that you can give?
Yeah, I would say that the mod slots aren't attributes.
No.
And the brand bonus, they're not attributes.
Okay.
For instance.
So, but there are other things that things that people have been seeing popping up, like hazard protection and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that would be an attribute for sure.
Okay, but it's not a stat.
It is, because it has a value next to it, so you'll get like a couple of percentage points worth of hazard protection, and that would be an attribute.
Okay, because I heard Tinks and Remy and Sage, actually, I think it was and Cat Claus was on the episode of Bombshell Jackets when they were talking about it. Do you know what hazard protection applies to? This probably isn't maybe part of your job, but in terms of what hazard protection will affect?
Yeah, so hazard protection is, we took all the more specific ones from the Division 1, which was like shock protection and fire protection and bleed protection, or resistance, I think it was called.
So that's a bucket for all of those?
Yeah, we baked those into one thing. So hazard protection will help you deal with any exotic type of damage, any status effect.
Okay. So does that kind of replace EDR as well, exotic damage resilience, or?
Yeah. I think EDR is gone because hazard protection kind of fills that already. Okay.
Damage from grenades, would that be classified as hazard protection?
I would say so, because it's explosion damage, which is unexotic damage. But now we're also straying into more Frederick territory.
Okay. So I went down a rabbit hole, but I'm sorry.
Don't quote me.
All right. Gear mods, because this is one of the things that is different as well. We talked about weapon mods yesterday with Frederick. They are singular.
Yes.
The stats on them will not have parameters or like ranges. Yep. They are fixed. And you craft them, or you get them from one source. And if you craft them once, you will have them. If you get them through perks, you will have them, and you'll need one of them, and that's it.
Yeah.
Gear mods and skill mods are different. So
yes.
Let's start at the start, because in the it changes throughout your experience of the game, right? When I first get a mod, what am I looking for?
All right.
Gear mod. Let's do gear mods first.
Yeah. So you'll start to see them when you start seeing the blue gear. They start coming with some mod slots, and then we introduce more mod slot as the gear gets better, progresses in quality. And when you get a gear mod, the first thing that you will need to care about is if it's one of two types. And we have system and protocol, which are two different types of mods, and they fit in different slots.
Okay.
So
what are the differences between system and protocol, though?
So they have different stat pools. They generate different things. There's some overlap, so you can get some degree of both system and protocol having the same stats, but generally most of them are separate. So if you're looking for increased grenade damage, that might only exist on the protocol mods and not on the system mods, for instance.
Going back a step in that whole thing, I pick up a piece of gear, let's say a chest piece.
Yeah.
That will have a slot on it, and the slot will tell me what kind of mod I need.
Exactly.
Are there ever any slots that can take both?
No,
or are they
they're not.
Always system and always protocol?
Yeah, exactly. It's
never both.
Yeah, they have different shapes,
Okay.
so they only fit in the respective slot. So what happens first is that you're going to see the generic system mods and generic protocol mods.
Okay.
And those go into any slot of protocol or system type that corresponds with it.
Okay.
And the mod you get, it has it's like finding normal loot. It has a level and it has a quality, and that decides how strong the stats are, how many stats there's on the mods, and kind of what they can roll.
How many stats can there be on a mod? Because I know in Division 1 you can get quite a few.
Yeah, I think it climbs up to, when you get the high-end ones, I think there's 3 or 4.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a bunch.
Okay.
It starts off with 1.
Okay.
Can we show it, or is it? Do we just?
We can show it. I think it depends on what gear we have on the character, but we might have a slot at least. I don't think we have any mods, but
Cool.
we can check.
Yeah.
All right. Just before we jump into that, because we'll show this all again in just a second. I want to make sure that I understand the basics before we get there. So you have system and protocol mods that fit into any type of slots, and as you progress, system and protocol will get subtypes of each of those.
Exactly.
Trees,
So what happens is when you start getting the orange, the high-end gear mods, then the system and protocol mods, they also have a subtype. So up until purple, you see the generic ones that fit in any slot. But when you start seeing the high-end ones, they're really, really strong. But the kind of drawback to that is that now they come in, for instance, utility system mod, for instance.
Okay.
And then that will only fit in a system mod socket that has a utility subtype to it.
So they get even more granular.
Yes.
To what they
so
require.
it becomes harder to equip them. You can't really equip them all over the place anymore. But what you get out of that instead is that you get more stats and more power out of the mods in questions.
Okay.
So when you're making builds, you want to, when you approach end game, you want to look at, okay, so what types of mod slots do I have here to a further extent, and what types of stats do I need from mods to help me with the playstyle I'm going for?
The first question that pops into my mind is, let's say I have a gear set that I really want.
Yeah.
And I want to min-max that one to the ends of the earth. When I get that chess piece for that gear set, and it has, let's say, for example, 2 mod slots,
Yeah.
will it always roll with the same mod slot requirements? Are those predefined or are those randomized?
Those are predefined. So
Okay.
any gear piece has a predefined set of sockets it will have, and that won't change. Which also ties into, so if you're looking for a certain brand, for instance, and you want to have utility mods, a backpack from that brand might have offense slots, whereas another backpack might have utility slots. And it's like, okay, then I want the second backpack of this brand. So within brands and between brands, it varies.
That makes sense for brands, but gear sets, will they ever have slot overlaps? Like, I mean, not slot overlaps. Like, it is slots, not gear slots. I mean, not mod slots, but that gear piece. Like, will it ever have, for example, like you said, for the brands, have 2 backpacks? But I don't imagine gear sets have the same.
No, they have one item.
One of each
per
piece.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's also one of the balancing factors that we can use. Is that okay? So this particular gear set is really good for a defensive playstyle, for instance. Then we can also either lean into that by increasing the number of defense mod slots on it, or if we notice that it's becoming a little bit too powerful, we can change that to be more about utility slots, or if we want to buff the damage output, we can add offense slots. Okay. So then you as a player can go in and customize that to equip the mods with the stats of that category that will cater more to your style.
Yeah, so again, hypothetically, this would potentially mean that, let's say there was a gear set focused towards the fantasy of being an elite sniper, right? It wouldn't make sense that we have randomized mod slots, because why would you ever want to play a tanky sniper type thing, right?
Yeah, and that's the trade-off
that's a bit of
that
a
play
waste.
style.
There would be a waste of a mod slot, and the RNG would kind of just be like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and then it would be...
I mean, while we're waiting to get in there, what were some of the key, I guess, like, things that you wanted to change from your previous experience designing these features? What was your key, I guess, philosophical goal for crafting? What did you want to happen?
So we wanted to give it a little bit more of an identity of its own, because we felt that with the Division 1, the crafting system had a little bit of overlap with the vendors, but you could like go and re-roll it at will instead of waiting for the vendor reset.
Yes.
And we also wanted to like increase quality of life and reduce a lot of like unnecessary things, like the blueprints, for instance. You would have to reacquire them at every level, at every gear score, at every quality, and that meant that if we gave you a really strong blueprint in the campaign from side missions, that would be super cool for like 2 levels, and then it would just fall off and become useless.
Waste of space. As well.
Yeah. So we wanted to move away from that, and instead make it so that if you actually get a blueprint, that would be good for you and something that you, no matter when you get it, it would be something that's useful. With the controls, it's a little bit hard.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what we see here is the landing page of the crafting station, and this is kind of how it will look like when you unlock it for the first time.
Yeah, and with less blueprints, probably.
Exactly. We added some blueprints and materials to ourselves here to make it so we can show you all the mechanics and everything. But if we look at the left-hand side, we have the stats panel of the crafting bench. There's the number of blueprints we have, which is 47 in this case.
So there's 180 blueprints?
Currently, yeah.
Ooh.
It's a lot of blueprints. And then we see that the crafting bench is specialized, so it's a blue quality at the moment. And the crafting level is 2, and that is also the same level as our agent is. And when we level up, this also levels up with us. So if we would go out and complete the mission, come back at level 3, we would be crafting at level 3.
But our crafting bench its ceiling is specialized quality? Is that... Because you can upgrade the bench as well, right?
Yes, exactly. So we can upgrade it. So the next upgrade will take it to purple, and then the next one will take it to orange. And then beyond that, we can upgrade it through the world tiers.
Cool.
So we have our categories. The gear, the weapons, the mods, and misc. And then we have this new thing, which is a crafting project.
Oh, I like that.
This is really cool. This is a feature I'm super happy we could add. And what this does is basically, if we select this, we can then select one of our blueprints and say, okay, I'm hunting to craft this one. And it will create a project for us that we have. When we access the world map, we can see an overview of our projects, and it will tell us, you need these materials, and you have enough materials to craft this item 2 times, maybe. And then that will increase as you find them.
Nice. Actually, that's a good question. Are the blueprints account-wide?
So they're not. Okay. They're per character. That's also something that we're looking at, because we know that especially in endgame, account-wide blueprints is a nice quality of life things. Okay. So that's something that's, it's being worked on. But currently, you get them on the character, and that's where you have them. Okay,
but technically, you could then craft something and put it in your stash and your other characters.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I mean, since you can do that, and that's like, we don't want to ban you from doing anything like that, or not ban you, but stop you from it.
Yeah.
a neat thing is to be realized also that we forgot to spawn credits, so we can only craft a couple of things, and then we would need to add that.
Okay, well, we could always like toggle off the screen and go give ourselves some credits.
Yeah.
At some point.
So what we have here is our guns, and on our left-hand side we see the different categories, and we can navigate between them like so. And yeah, here we have the assault rifles. We have 3 blueprints here. Normally, we would get these blueprints from a variety of sources, where we would either get them from side missions, or by completing certain projects, or maybe buying them from a vendor and things like that. Okay. So for this early in the game, this is a lot of blueprints. This is something that kind of grows with you.
So on that, what you're just saying now is these are all from activities, and they have a dedicated source. Are there any that are just in the loot pool and you may or may not get from drops?
So that's definitely something that we considered, but for the campaign, we actually said that, okay, so we could do that, and it would be cool to find a random knee-pad blueprint from just shooting an enemy. However, we wanted to, since they're unlocks, these blueprints, so you get the ones and you have them and they grow with you, we wanted to have, give you a better experience of, okay, so when you're at level, say 7, we want it to be possible for you to have acquired a bunch of gear blueprints reliably, because if you're looking for that mask to replace and you can't find from loot, we want you to go craft it so you get something good, so you can progress until you find a better item to replace that with from the normal loot pool.
That reliability really makes sense for the campaign. That's really cool. Otherwise, people are going to have wildly different experiences. Exactly.
And also, crafting, it's a really cool system. But if you just think, okay, so what is crafting doing in this game? It's a lot of helping the player to catch up. So it's a support system where you can go, oh, I'm actually falling behind on, a slot, or I'm not finding an assault rifle, but I want to play with an assault rifle. Then you can go and craft that thing to get it a little bit on demand to help you along. So that's why we wanted to have a little bit more control over what's the possibility of you actually getting blueprints that are useful in the campaign.
Cool. Shall we have a look?
All right. So if we look at this FAMAS here, we see on the right-hand side the stats panel, and you can see that it says replica after it. Any crafted item will have a replica, or in some cases improvised, keyword.
Okay.
That means that this looks and behaves and feels like a normal FAMAS. However, you can always know when what has come from crafting and stuff like that. And I think that's really really neat when you're looking through your inventory and you can get reminded of, oh, right, I can craft this item, or this is how I got it.
Cool. On that, so one that I craft and one that I find in the world, do they have the same or different stat ranges?
They have the same.
Okay.
And then in endgame, they scale a little bit differently with gear score. But if we just look at this, early in the campaign, it's I craft this, and it's no difference between this and one I can find in loot.
Cool.
Yeah. So we can look at the different stats here. We'll see we get a random bonus, we get a random talent, we see the mod slots. Those aren't random, so those are just how they preview, okay, this is what you're gonna get, which is cool, because if you have a lot of 556 muscles mods that you like, then you would like to find a weapon that actually has that. And it's not random so much as I'll show you.
Cool.
And you can see, the damage range it will roll in between, and the magazine and RPM accuracy and all that jazz.
Nice.
And you can also compare this to your equipped weapon, which is really cool. So I can scroll down a little bit here and see that, okay, well, this has a damage range that will automatically be higher than the level 1 gun I have equipped right now.
Cool. And I also see you can make it a project as well from there.
Exactly. So if we press this button here, then we made it into a project, and I think you can see that it's marked as the current crafting project. And if we go out here, we have it in the top. And if we go to the world map, we can see it also outside of the bench, and that's the main utility. So you can, when you roam the world, you can get reminded, oh, what is it that I'm looking at again? And you can look at it.
What do I not have? What do I need?
Exactly.
Well, and I don't know if this is a thing, but in terms of a quality of life thing, let's say I have a crafting project and I don't have all of the resources.
Yeah.
Will I get some sort of notification when I magically pick up resources? Like, you can now craft your project.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my
Actually, it's
live
been a while
feedback.
since I played with this, so I would have to look at it. But I think the main thing is that you can always go in and look at it. Like
you don't have to
with
go
two
back to
button
the
presses,
and,
you can get into your projects menu, and then you can see it there. And then just as a convenience, you can select it here as well, like so. And then you go to the project.
Cool, makes sense.
Cool. So yeah, if we look at the top here, we see the crafting cost, and it says some e-credits. And like, imagine that you need to buy some tape and glue and other things that you can't necessarily find.
That's how you make a gun, right?
Yeah. Well, it's only specialized quality.
Right,
And then you see the materials requirements. We have a steel, carbon fiber, and receiver components, which are green, blue, and gray materials. And these materials are new for the Division 2. We moved away from how we do materials like we did in the first game, where we had one material that corresponded, or two materials corresponded with gear and/or weapons, and then the different mods to those. And yeah, since you can't deconstruct weapon mods anymore, that wouldn't work. But also we wanted to ground it a little bit more, and disconnect it a little bit from that, like, oh, I need to just hunt gear to deconstruct it to get these materials.
That was one of the things I think you mentioned to Ella and I a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this, was that certain materials are dropped more frequently by certain factions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if I need, higher tech stuff, I will, track down these people. Or...
Yeah, exactly. And if we bring up the materials overlay here, so we can see that the receiver components and protective fabric, these are our base materials, and those still come from deconstructing weapons or gear, and that's kind of what you get from it. And you can also unlock a perk, so if you deconstruct something, you have a chance to get a green material from them as well. But then if we look at our standard and specialized materials here, we can see steel here is valued by the True Sons. So if you go and fight the True Sons faction, then they will drop these materials for you.
Oh, it actually says it in the, in the description.
Behind the weird scan lines that only we can see.
Yeah.
And then there's some description, like a factual description of like, oh, what is steel? How does it work? How is it used in weapons? And like, despite the icon here, like the icon looks like a I-beam to help communicate, like, oh, this is steel. But yeah, if you would look at this from a role-playing or fantasy perspective, it's like, yeah, well, you use steel to build a lot of guns in a lot of cases, small or large components depending on the gun and what it needs to do and why, etc. And when you scavenge these things in the world, it's not that you're tearing down buildings. Like, you can't go to a construction site and just like take all the
copper.
yeah, exactly. No, it's rather that you find components in the world made out of steel that you can then like recycle and use into crafting. So that's. But then we need to, like, it's a video game, right? So we can't have you find every individual piece of an item. So we abstract it into like components made out of steel that you can use.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so steel is used for firearms, and then if we look at ceramics, that's used for gear, and the outcasts have this material, so they drop it, have a drop chance. So you can, and for all of these, you can find them in the world when you scavenge, or you can go fight the factions, and they have a small drop chance for it. So if you want to farm for, say, polycarbonate, which can be used in both gear and weapons, hyenas tend to drop these, so you can say that, okay, then I'm going to go and play main missions with hyenas in them. And as you do that, you will start finding materials from drops, and then you can combine this with also like, oh, I want to farm for a new weapon, and then you can go, play these types of activities to find both things at once.
Do you happen to know if there are any perks that help you with finding crafting materials?
So there's...
or deconstructing and getting more?
Yeah, there's two perks for deconstructing.
Oh, cool.
One of them gives you a chance to get better yields, to get more out of it.
That's
and
cool.
the other perk is that, okay, you have a chance to get one of the green materials when you deconstruct, and not just the gray ones over here.
There are no vendors that sell crafting materials.
No, they're not.
Right? Okay.
However, you can either fight the factions, or scavenging in the world is a great way to find it. Like, you just go off the beaten path and then loot some backpacks that's scattered about, and you'll find a great deal of materials that you can use.
All right.
So yeah, and then we have a little bit rarer, the specialized materials, and here we also have, they're also hoarded by a faction, and they're used for one for weapon, one for gear, and one for both. And then we go into superior materials, which will have the printer filament. And this you get from Deconstructing mods for gear and for skills. And it's also mainly used to create those things as well. But it's also used a little bit in some other special cases. And then when we go into endgame, you can see I have 3 high-end materials here. And
That's cool.
we'll talk about those in a minute, because we haven't crafted anything yet.
No, we probably should. So
yeah.
I know we're taking our time with this, but it's super exciting.
Yeah.
Does chat have any requests of what we should craft? It'd be cool to give the opportunity to chat. What would you like to see us craft of these level 2 weapons?
Yeah.
Ella's going to let us know, because there are quite a few options in there.
PSA about recalibration. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about recalibration after we've done the crafting loop.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We'll get there.
3 for M4.
M4?
M4 again. M4. Yeah, please M4.
Let's do the police info then.
All right. Let's do this. Okay, so we're ready to craft. We see the little button flashing. So I'm holding X here on an
so excited.
controller. And we're crafting it. And then, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm just kidding. I want to do that.
Debated.
Boom. Yeah, and here we go. And we get a reveal.
I love the screen.
And you see the thing. We see all the rolls. So the right-hand side now, this is fixed. So.
That is a sick talent for this gun.
Oh, yeah. That's neat. That's one of my favorite. I'm very much a print spray player, so this is a really good talent for me. Yeah, and you see everything. From here, you can either equip it, we can compare it to what we have, which is really handy.
Oh, it compares the damage drop-off too.
Yeah. So this is just as comparing in the inventory. And we can mark it as favorite, we can mark it as junk, we can deconstruct it here if we're not, if we don't like this result. Or we can just go back. So yeah, let's go back. Cool, and then we start here again, and maybe I want to do a shotgun, and I can do that next, etc., etc.
All right.
And when we look at gear, it looks the same. So in the campaign, you'll start to find the improvised blueprints, and these don't have a brand, because you're kind of making them themselves, and you don't want to make copyright infringement and all that jazz. So for the campaign, you have the unbranded things you can craft. And that means that when you find stuff from loot, that will generally be a little bit better because they have a brand, and the brand bonuses are pretty neat. However, crafting grows a little bit faster than loot, so you can craft blue items a little bit before you start seeing them frequently in drops.
So you can get that power spike before you would.
Yeah, and then same when you go up onto purple. Like you'll see a couple of purple items dropping, but you can get it reliably from crafting a little bit before you get it reliably from loot. And the same with high end. But
so
then,
don't sleep on crafting if you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But the drawback here is then you lose out on the brand bonuses, and that also makes it so when you find an item in the world, that can be better, and you can replace it. So you're getting the best of 2 worlds. You both craft good stuff, and you find good stuff and equip it, and that's fun because it's a loot game, right?
But you don't have brand bonuses on weapons, so there's really no drawback to hitting those power spikes earlier with weapons.
So the campaign blueprints for weapons, you get the more like standard ones. So now we had given ourselves a bunch of them with debug commands, but the ones you find they're a little bit more basic. Some of them have fewer mod slots and stuff like that, and then you start to find the higher tiers of weapons later. They're not necessarily like stronger or have more bonuses or anything, but like they're different flavors, right?
Cool. All right.
Yeah, and if we craft this here, this works the same. And we get 1 bonus here, armor, a die slot, which is cool.
Yeah, there's a question in chat. Can you craft brands? That was what you said before. No.
Yes.
You can?
Yeah.
What?
So
I thought we cared about IP law even when the world is falling apart.
But it's the agent in the world. But then when you save the world and you hit end game or whatever, like no spoiler share, you don't care anymore.
But so you won't craft brands through 1 to 30?
No, you will not.
Okay.
Not generally, because you have the improvised line of gear that you're using instead.
Okay. So later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get into that soon, though.
Interesting.
We see it flashes here and says upgrade bench. please. And on the left-hand side, we can, just where the cursor is actually, we can see that the next upgrade is going to be purple, and it will cost us a bunch of resources.
Okay.
And I think that's cool, so we can do that. So now we're upgrading the bench. And as simple as that, now if we go and look at our mask, this is purple.
Cool.
And we see it has 2 bonuses now instead of 1. It also costs a little bit more, but since we're later in the game, we're also acquiring things faster.
So is it feasible to hit superior quality at level 2 character, just to be clear? All right.
It's not.
All right. Just
yeah,
this is
a very debug environment.
This is hypothetical, but you won't be able to do exactly this in the game.
Yeah, you'll find...
This will probably happen later.
Yeah, it's towards the 20 range of...
Okay.
Yeah, one is branded. So what we have here is one Badgertough backpack. This is set backpack. And then we have one from Petro Defense Group.
Look at all those bonuses and talents.
Yeah.
Damn.
This is endgame right here. So if we look at this one, we see in the bottom here the brand set. So it's easy for us to see, okay, well, I forgot what the Badger gear does. So I can go here and, all right, yeah, it's damage to elites. Cool, that's really nice. Yeah,
so people are talking about high end at level 2. Now,
yes.
like we said before, we are just showing you a demo of a dev build. So we're theoretically going to be hitting high ends around level 29, 30.
Exactly.
But for the demo's sake, we're just running it at this level.
Yeah.
But no, in the core game, this will not be the way it works for you.
Yes. Yeah, cool. So if we look at it, it looks like the other gear item, right? It has the name on the top. It's also a replica item now, meaning that we can track it, knowing that, we crafted this thing. And we have some cost, we have an armor range, the bonuses, mod slots, and dice. We would see a talent here if we would have one. Maybe this one can have 2 talents. This one can not have any talent, but it would have more power in the stats instead.
That is a good question. How do you get branded blueprints?
Yeah, and these...
Are they a little bit different, or are they the same?
So they work the same as the unbranded blueprints, but how you get them is a little bit more bespoke. So some of them will go on the endgame vendors, so you can actually buy them.
Cool.
Some of them come from doing certain activities. So if you have a weekly project to do, maybe you get a blueprint from there and stuff like that. And you can also harass control points to make them give you blueprints if you want.
Just harass them.
Yeah. Just
give me.
shout out. These only exist within Division 2, right? So these are a little bit more made up, maybe, but still part of the game and its flavor. So yeah, I love this. I had a lot of fun making these, and together with narrative, going through them and making sure that they're all good.
That is a good question. So is there any drop chance for the branded materials?
So you won't get it from drops when killing enemies.
Okay.
However, there are some activities that will reward random brand materials. Because it can be, like if you want Badger gear, and then to get the material, we require you to deconstruct same branded gear to get that. Like, it doesn't really work out, right? Yeah. So if you haven't hoarded up a bunch from before, you can do certain activities to get a random drop of them.
Okay, so projects and
projects.
Things? Okay. Bounties? I don't know.
Anyway. I think so. Yeah, we recently went through it and added it to a couple more places, so it's a little bit.
But it'll be in-game activities, and
it will be in-game for sure. And also if you deconstruct gear of this brand that's weaker or a type you don't want, or they'll have the wrong rolls, then you can get this material out and then take a spin at the crafting bench. Okay,
what we should do, because I realize.
Right, so we recal. One thing that we wanted to approach was that it was very random, and you went in and just re-rolled until you got what you got. And having that type of output randomness, as it's called, is not necessarily fun, because you just you press the button, it randomizes, you see the results, you select one if you want to redo it again. So, but it still has to be a random system. Because if we would make a system that would just be, you can go and just select a stat, and this is what I want it to be maxed out, then
it's not a game anymore.
No, you undercut the whole game, and that's not really what this is about. So we took an approach with what's called input randomness instead, where we make sure that you, in a random way, you find what you need. And then you can use that to predictably get what you want.
Yeah, I think what's cool about this is that it actually gives value to every drop now. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm out in the world and I get, you know, I'm mostly kitted out in high ends.
Yeah.
Or gear sets, and then I find a purple piece of gear.
Yeah.
But it has a 6 stat on it.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could put it on my
Exactly.
high end or whatever.
Yeah.
I can now do that.
Yeah, you can use that to transfer it. So we can explain the mechanic real quick, just to everyone who hasn't followed when we talked about this on the live stream for the closed beta. But basically, when you recalibrate, when you find an item in the world and you find a stat or talent on it that you like, you can transfer it to an item that you'd rather equip. So yeah, like you said, you have a high-end set of knee pads, and it has 2 good stats on it, but then it has crit chance, and maybe you're not building for crit chance. Maybe you're building a tanky build with these knee pads. In another knee pad that drops, that's purple, or maybe a high-end, but it's the wrong brand, or it's not a gear set or whatever, we get a good roll of bonus armor, for example, for you. And then what you can do then is to use that roll of bonus armor to overwrite the crit chance on the knee pads that you actually want to have, and change it to be an armor roll by moving, using the stat from the trash item you found and like putting that into the item that you actually want, and then you customized it. So now we have that defensive armor stat rather than the crit chance that was useless to the build you were making.
Okay, so what happens to that, what we designated as the trash item? Does it receive the bonus from the one that you're recalling to? Does it swap, or does it cannibalize that?
No, we break it down. So imagine that you're looking at a mask and like, oh, this one component is really good. I want it in my other mask. Then you need to like break it open and pry it out before you can like
So it
take it out,
consumes
and
that
it destroys that item. Yeah.
Okay, so just before people are like, I have 2 great items. If only I could switch these 2 stats.
No.
And then have these 2 items, that's not going to happen.
No, don't do that.
It'll
or
be
you
like,
can't
oh,
do
it's
that.
gone.
Don't expect that.
All right, okay, cool.
Exactly. So, but yeah, just like you said, it makes it so that anything that drops in the world is interesting. Because even if it's a lower quality, lower power, wrong brand, anything, it can have that one component that you actually want or need. And then you can use that as a material, essentially, for recalibration.
Cool.
What happens then is that it's within the same slot. So if you want to transfer something to knee pads, you need to take something from another set of knee pads.
Okay, so you can't go from like mask to knee pads.
No, because that would be weird. But imagine that you have a protective armor and you want to change out the plating, the bulletproof plating.
Yeah.
And then you take your glove and just drop that in there and throw out the armor piece. Like it doesn't really work. So no, it has to be the same type of garment, the same type of item.
Yeah.
And same with guns as well. Like if you have a pistol and try to jam a light machine gun mechanism into it, that just doesn't work. So it doesn't make sense at all.
It's like an LMG, magazine stuck on the bottom of your pistol.
That'd
be cool.
Would be a big ass pistol.
Yes.
Making notes for future exotics.
Future exotics.
So it needs to be the same type of item. And then there's some restrictions of what you can do, because like we can't have you completely breaking the balance of the item either. So if you look at the weapons, for instance, which have the 3 different types of talents, you can only move it to the same slot. So if you want to move the advanced talent from your pistol to your other pistol, it needs to overwrite that advanced talent. So you can't be stacking these because they need to be of the same category. Yeah. So it's more about changing what you have like on the whole level, rather than making it stupidly overpowered by making combinations that really shouldn't exist in the game.
Okay.
And on gear, we have the offense, defense, utility category that we use to move over. So it's defense to defense. So my example of the knee pads actually didn't work. That's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scratch that.
Yeah.
On that, well, what example does work?
So what would work is that, okay, you're not building for crit chance, and you find a roll of weapon damage. Then those are offense stats. Then you can replace your crit chance with your weapon damage, because you have a more like on-hit type of build.
Cool, got it.
So yeah.
Also, if I have a piece of, armor or something that I have applied a recalibration to, that specific stat will be able to be recaled in the future, but the other ones will be locked.
Exactly. You can recalibrate one thing, and then you can recalibrate that how many times you want. Like,
that's
there's
similar
no
to the
limit. Yeah. But you can't recalibrate everything.
Same with talents, right?
Yes, exactly. But if you swap out a talent and you feel like, oh, this wasn't really for me, or maybe like further down the line you want to redefine your playstyle a bit, you can swap the talent out again without like losing the whole item, because that's a bit unfair if it's your favorite pistol then.
Nice. Yeah. This is a cool question. Is the stat scale to the level of the item I transfer it to? E.g., if I find like a purple item that has, let's say, 5% weapon damage, and that's the maximum on that piece of gear, and then if the high end can have 7%, will it be 5% from the item, like a direct copy and paste, or will it scale to be the maximum for the destination?
So I think what you see on the trash item, like the item that you want to take something from and move, that is like the possibility. So if you see 5% crit chance on knee pads that you don't want, if you transfer it, it can maximum only ever be 5% crit chance. But then, however, there's some stuff that's happening, especially in endgame, with how the stat is transferred. So if an item starts to grow in power, that stat will not necessarily look the same from what it was in the beginning to what it was on the other side. And each item in endgame also has a cap of like how much it can grow. So if you have a, just example, gear score 200 item, I don't know if that's a valid number, but imagine we have one. Then that can only climb with 15 gear score. And then after that, you can't increase the power anymore, because this was the potential of this item, and you need to find something with a higher base gear score to make that grow, to make it even stronger.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so because we don't want to undercut your progression through endgame, and we don't want to make it so you can just go in and stupidly overpower an item just like that. So yeah, when you find an item that's good, you can make it a little bit better, and then when you find an item that's even better, you can make that a little bit better without necessarily having to hold on to that old one.
I like this. Ella's just having to us. This div is really great to listen to.